Hello, everyone, and thank you, Big Data and AI Toronto, for having me. My name is Oksana Andreiuk, and I'm the Digital and Data Innovation Lead at AbbVie Canada. And I'm so excited to be joining today to speak about the future of artificial intelligence empowering clinical trial innovation. Now, in this presentation, I'll review the market trends around AI-powered solutions in the pharmaceutical sector, the four main areas of operations where pharma is set to see benefits from the use of artificial intelligence, and then dive deeper into exploring the three main pain points traditionally seen in clinical trials, which make it an area for possible disruption. And we'll discuss some of the AI-powered solutions being explored or developed to address those challenges and present opportunities to reduce costs and increase speed of clinical trials. So I want to start by reviewing the recent market trends, which show the pharmaceutical industry is increasingly exploring the potential of AI-driven solutions. There has been a significant boost in AI deals in the pharma sector over the past year that's supported by an increase in AI patents. In parallel, the last year has been a record-breaking year for biotech funding in general, with lots of venture capital activity and a number of IPOs. And we're seeing the sub-area of pharmaceutical AI receiving increased attention by all kinds of investors, with almost $4 billion raised collectively by early-stage AI-driven drug discovery companies and private rounds and public market launches. So AI in pharma is certainly a dynamic space. Now, as AI solutions are gaining momentum in the pharmaceutical sector, it's helpful to be aware of government perspectives on this technology. And looking at Canada, we're well situated in a market that's supportive of AI innovation in healthcare. Canada adopted a national artificial intelligence strategy in 2017, which recognizes the impact that AI discovery and application can have for patients and the healthcare system. There have been 3 national AI institutes launched under this strategy, and that includes the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute, the Mila Research Institute in Artificial Intelligence in Quebec, and the Vector Institute for Artificial Intelligence based in Toronto, Ontario. And we're seeing an increasing number of research partnerships being formed between AI institutes and pharmaceutical companies in Canada. Now, there are several areas for AI innovation in healthcare, and experts foresee that AI and machine learning shows potential in diagnosing, managing, and treating a wide range of medical conditions. And we are seeing such technologies starting to gain regulatory clearance for use in clinical practice. In an effort to consolidate and track such approvals and raise awareness of the importance of regulatory bodies, in September of last year, in 2020, the pharmaceutical industry saw the publication and launch in Nature Journal of the first comprehensive and open access database of AI and machine learning-based medical devices and algorithms that have been approved by the US Food and Drugs Administration. Now, at the time of publication, there were 64 such medical devices and algorithms, with the majority developed in the fields of radiology, cardiology, and internal medicine or general practice, which provides an indication of which areas of clinical practice may start to see this technology being utilized for diagnosing, managing, and treating medical conditions. Now, as the database is updated on an ongoing basis, it'll be interesting to see how these trends progress. Pharma is set to see benefits from the use of artificial intelligence and its wide range of applications across 4 main areas of operations, and that is drug research and development, clinical trials, manufacturing, and marketing. And for the purposes of this presentation, we will be focusing on clinical trials. So clinical trials are the longest, most expensive part of the pharmaceutical industry operations. However, many pain points that clinical trials face may be solved by digital technology and AI-powered solutions, and that is what we'll be discussing in the rest of this presentation. Now, we're already seeing the shift starting from traditional trial models to more agile, patient-centric processes driven by digital health technologies, making this an exciting space to watch. So there are three major areas of challenges pertaining to clinical trials that make this an area for possible AI disruption. And in this presentation, I'll walk through some of the AI and big data-driven innovations that address these pain points. The first being clinical trial recruitment delays, whereas identifying and matching patients that match trial inclusion and exclusion criteria can be complex. And that's coupled with, at times, lengthy enrollment processes and geographic limitations. The second main challenge is around patient burden of symptom tracking, and that's referring to the often manual tracking required by patients of their data during the trial, which poses the risk of missed doses or missing entries that can cause data issues and potentially patient dropout from the trial, ultimately slowing down trial completion. And the third challenge is around data management frictions, and that's referring to a clinical trial software landscape that is historically fragmented, forming a complex ecosystem of partially interoperable solutions and requiring manual operations to validate forms and double check against human error. Now, AI innovation is coming to clinical trials through multiple channels with potential to reduce costs of trials and increase speed. And in the following slides, I'll walk through the three major categories of AI and big data-driven innovations that address these pain points. The first area is AI-powered patient recruitment technology that's accelerating trial enrollment. We'll then discuss how wearables and apps are presenting an opportunity to accelerate clinical trials. And we'll also discuss the clinical trial software trend toward interoperable data systems. So starting with addressing clinical trial recruitment delays, we can look at three areas of innovation, and that is starting with choosing the right clinical trial site. So we're seeing a big data-powered site selection to choose sites with geographic prevalence of disease and maximizing probability of finding participants quickly. The second piece is around identifying the right patients for the clinical trials. So with advancements in AI and natural language processing, these pose the ability to screen medical records at scale, matching patient records to trial inclusion and exclusion criteria, and present an opportunity to match patients to trials at time of diagnosis through integration with lab information systems and electronic medical records. And lastly, we're seeing the potential of alternatively reducing the number of patients required in clinical trials, and that is through what's called a digital twin for each enrolled patient that may reduce the number of patients needed in the placebo arm. Now, there are some considerations with utilizing and implementing digital twins in clinical trials, and that is based on the understanding of disease and availability of data, as well as a regulatory acceptance of the technology. Moving into the second challenge of addressing the patient burden of symptom tracking. Effective monitoring of clinical trial participants is critical for patient protection and study integrity. And with wearable technology and digital apps now being able to capture more biomarker data than ever before, this presents an opportunity to accelerate clinical trials. So when discussing AI-powered or big data solutions and addressing patient burden of symptom tracking, we can look into two categories of these solutions. So the first I alluded to with wearable technology and digital apps. These offer the benefit of continuous capture of relevant biomarkers They also offer increased statistical power due to more data points captured. And they offer the potential of fully automated data operations. As well, they offer increased objectivity in measures of disease states and offer the potential of developing novel quality of life biomarkers through wearables and digital endpoints. And I'll discuss a couple of examples of these in the following slides. On the left, you see electronic patient-reported outcomes platforms being highlighted. So these software systems offer the potential of improved patient diary compliance and data reciprocation, as well as improved tracking of missed diaries for deeper analysis of patient compliance. They also offer the ability to trigger diary entry reminders to patients enrolled in the trials, and offer the ability for patients to access their historical diary responses throughout the duration of the trial. Now, AbbVie began integrating wearables into clinical trials in 2016 and wanted to highlight an example where AbbVie is using wearables to track movement for early Parkinson's disease detection. So in this example study, patients wore a sensor on their wrist and ankle that continuously and objectively measured Parkinson's motor symptoms. So in terms of measures that were collected, the researchers were able to determine what % of time patients were in control of their symptoms. And the algorithm also enabled researchers to determine whether patients had a good gait or if the Parkinson's drug would lose effectiveness as patients got to the end of the dosing interval. In terms of the market trends, it's projected that 70% of clinical trials will incorporate some type of wearable sensor by 2025. Now, AbbVie is also an early adopter of digital endpoints. And for those less familiar with the term, the assessment of health and disease requires a set of criteria to define health status and progression. These health measures are referred to as endpoints in clinical trials. So a digital endpoint, it can then be defined by its use of sensor-generated data that can be collected in a clinical setting, but also often collected outside of a clinical setting and in a patient's free living environment. Now, for the AbbVie example shown on the slide, to give brief context, sleep disturbance is very common in patients with atopic dermatitis, and it's a major factor leading to impaired quality of life. Now, nocturnal scratching is one of the factors causing sleep disturbance in atopic dermatitis patients. And this study aims to develop and validate a digital algorithm for accurately and reliably detecting and quantifying nocturnal scratch behaviors related to atopic dermatitis using actigraphy data from a wearable device, as well as utilizing a wearable sleep headband device to monitor sleep impact. So in this study, participants will be monitored overnight in a clinical inpatient setting to collect wrist actigraphy and videography data. And the sleep headband will also be collecting sleep quality data during that duration as well. Now, moving into an at-home setting, participants with atopic dermatitis will also be monitored at home via the wrist actigraphy as well as the sleep headband for 7 consecutive nights. So in all, this study is an example of utilizing a combination of data collection methods in inpatient as well as at-home settings, powered by wearable technology, videography, and electronic patient-reported outcomes to detect and quantify nocturnal scratch behaviors in atopic dermatitis patients. Lastly, looking at the third challenge of addressing clinical trial data management frictions, the software landscape is trending toward cloud-based platforms offering streamlined workflows and greater integrations. Now, traditionally, systems have been offered as point solutions for a single capability. However, next generation trial management interoperable systems are looking to connect all stakeholders, eliminate steps, and streamline data flows. So just to highlight what we're seeing from new entrants in this space, we're seeing them offer cloud-based platform solutions, particularly in clinician-facing systems, electronic patient-reported outcomes, and e-visits. They're also disrupting common industry practices, and with the example of eliminating manual source data verification in favor of digital form validation at time of data entry, as well as emphasizing open APIs for simple data integration. Now, in terms of the incumbent vendors in this space, we're also seeing them adapting their systems for cloud deployments and emphasizing integrated platforms without neglecting open APIs. So to summarize, startups and incumbent vendors in this space are moving their systems to the cloud, introducing new integration capabilities to streamline patient, investigator, and pharma data flows, and offer improved data management through clinical trial workflows. So to summarize the AI-powered solutions that are shifting traditional trial models to a more agile and patient-centric process or processes, we discussed three major pain points and their AI-powered solutions that are we're starting to see in this space. So in terms of addressing clinical trial recruitment delays, we're seeing intelligent patient-to-trial matching. In terms of addressing patient burden of logging symptoms, we're seeing increased use of electronic patient-reported outcomes, wearables, and apps to report data directly. And lastly, in terms of data management frictions, traditionally seen in clinical trials, we're seeing new entrants and incumbent vendors moving to interoperable data system solutions. So these innovations show potential to reduce costs of clinical trials and increase speed, ultimately impacting the process of bringing novel therapies to market to meet patient needs. And that wraps up the session for today. I would want to thank you all for attending this session on the future of AI in powering clinical trial innovation. This is certainly an exciting space, and I'm personally looking forward to what's to come. So thank you again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this wonderful big data and AI event.